Thank you, everybody. Thank you for signing in. You want to take it away?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so welcome everybody to the public meeting here. I will open up the Board of Selectmen's meeting, because we do have a forum here. We have Selectman Rawson.
And Humphrey Williams.
And Humphrey Williams, and so November 20th for the minutes. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Floor is yours.
Yep, thank you, sir. I appreciate everybody coming out, Selectmen included, Town Administrator, everybody. Business owners, residents, stakeholders, whoever you are, thank you. My name is Blair Haney. I am with the Strafford Regional Planning Commission. The County of Strafford, plus a couple other communities, yourself being one of them, we're part of the a regional planning group. There's 18 of us, and Milton and Farmington are two of those communities. The project tonight we're going to go over is basically a grant that we got that involves Milton and Farmington. With me tonight is going to be Drew Ekelina from SLR Consulting. We hired them through an RFP process to help lead this discussion, and working with him is Mike Petrovic and Hunter Davis, both with Mike Petrovic, architects. So that's our team, and I want to introduce the project, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to walk you through everything. So the idea for the project tonight is we're looking at public facilities that this community owns that you have identified internally through your selectmen, through your processes, as perhaps being underutilized, and saying, what can we do? What's the next life for these properties? What does that look like? What are those uses? What is that vision? What are those potential uses? And then what do we need to do to the buildings to get to that use? So the goal for tonight is to hear from you what you think these facilities could look like in the future. Some are a little more difficult than others, but I think we can work our way through it. We've done this before. You know your community. We kind of know what we're doing in the way of leading this discussion. So hopefully you can provide us with some good feedback. The three properties, I'm sure you're familiar with them, but I'll just walk over real quick. This is the Milton Townhouse, right here at 125 and Townhouse Road, that V-shaped split. I guess it's occasionally used right now for voting and some small gatherings.
Blair, it hasn't been used for voting, just for small gatherings.
Oh, just the gathering. My apologies. Okay, all right. Right, so that's the Milton Townhouse. And then you have your Town Beach, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, as well as the facilities that are there. You have your formal baseball fields, you have your informal areas, your parking, and a bathroom area. And then, of course, the last one, which has had many lives. If you've been here for a while, it's been a Catholic church. It's been Old Town Hall. It's the Emma Ramsey facility. And then just across Charles Street is a parking facility that goes along with it. So that's very high level. Those are the three sites that we're looking at. And as I said, the goal for tonight is to think about a vision, what these facilities could look like with some improvements, what would be the uses, and who would be the user. So is there a nonprofit in the town that you can think of that might be looking for a community space or to run events? Is there a for-profit business that you think might be a good fit for one of these facilities, either to rent it out or to use it exclusively? Or is there some whole new vision that we hadn't considered, right? And then the third piece is, we'll touch on a little bit, but we're not going to get into as much tonight, is what does it take to get to that? What kind of improvements would be necessary? There's going to be a second meeting, and that will be where we present findings, recommendations, however you want to look at it. But basically, we're going to take what we learned tonight through our own research, conversations with town staff, and some of the town leaders, and we're going to put that together in sort of a draft report and come back and present it to you and get a final bit of feedback. So you're going to get a second bite of the apple, and you'll probably see a little bit more specifics about what we think you need to do in the way of improvements to get to your vision and your suggested uses. We won't get too much on that one, but getting out of you tonight some ideas, some organizations, some people, and just generally what your thoughts are on these three facilities and how we can better utilize them so they don't just kind of sit dormant or, become something that you just have to pay to upkeep. They call it mothballing it. So we want to try to think bigger, think outside the box. So that's the idea. I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to walk you through the process of the individual properties.
Great.
Any questions before we get started?
Of the website, if they don't come up with anything, if you guys don't come up with anything tonight, no pressure. I get my best ideas in the shower, so. We have a website that you can go on there, and there's a bunch of questions and ability to write things down in there, so you can do it at your own leisure, after we get done. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
And how do we get to that?
Right, so that website's going to be linked through the town hall, or the town's own website. If you want it tonight, there's a QR code on the sheet. You know how to use QR codes. It's done to your camera. You're welcome to get there tonight. Otherwise, it'll be on the town's website. And it's a nice little story map, and it includes a survey specific to Milton.
Okay, one last question. Are you gonna be discussing any properties from Farmington tonight?
No, sorry. I just was mentioning that the grant involved both communities, but no, we're not talking those properties tonight.
Farmington's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Well, we have a Farmington resident here, he was just asking.
Oh.
Okay, sorry about the confusion on that.
That's okay.
It's a good warm-up
It
for
was
you.
a long drive from Farmington. Yeah, just on the public meeting notice that was posted. It showed Farmington.
Okay, sorry.
Is it tomorrow night?
It is.
Is one at the town offices,
Municipal offices, yeah.
municipal offices.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Or high school, whatever. That's another discussion. Okay, so, well, welcome, everybody. As Blair mentioned, my name is Mike Petrovic. I'm the principal of Michael Petrovic Architects. We have an office in Keene, New Hampshire, and an office in Amesbury, Massachusetts. We do about 70% of our work is municipal work, and of that, about 40% of that are planning exercises like this and helping communities decide what to do with buildings that are underutilized or need to change a use. So as Blair mentioned, tonight we're going to be looking at townhouse, beach, and however you refer to this, Catholic Church, Ramsey, town offices, whatever it is. So the first one I'd like to talk about tonight is the townhouse. And so, but before we get to that, just as a show of hands, and I'm not gonna use all the questions from the survey, but I am gonna use a couple of them just to get us off to a start here. Who has lived in Milton longer than 30 years? Okay, great. And who has lived here between 10 and 30 years? Great, less than 10. Okay, good. So we have a great cross-section. Some of the folks that have been here 30 years or more can probably help us out with some of the uses from long ago and some of the things that happened in these places. And then maybe think about, some of the newcomers can think about what they're looking for or what's missing. So thinking about the townhouse, so this is who sees this as kind of a historic icon for Milton?
Part of the.
Well, there it is right there, right? Okay, so that means that it's an icon as far as icons go, right? And so who has been to an event at the townhouse? Okay, and let's talk about what were those events. Can I get a few people to volunteer? Yes, ma'am.
The Milton Women's Club always had their annual bazaar there with no running water, no bathrooms except the outhouses.
Okay, and is that an organization that's no longer in
No,
existence?
they're still in existence. They no longer use the townhouse for their bazaar.
And where do they have it now?
I haven't been for a while, so I'm not sure. Probably the church, the Milton Community Church.
Okay. What else? Yes.
Cemetery meetings?
Cemetery meetings, okay, so things like boards or committees that are town meet there.
Yeah, Historical Society.
Historical Society. So I'm gonna come back, so why do those groups meet there instead of here?
Well, before we didn't have this building.
Okay,
But of course, we had the Emma Ramsey. It's just where the leader of the cemeteries, actually, he enjoyed going.
okay,
where we held most of the cemetery meetings.
Okay, what else? Yes,
Historical Society.
Historical Society, do they still meet there or no?
When we can't get in here, we do.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that facility is that it's a large room with a very high ceiling, so it's very echoey.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to hear,
Okay.
because it is just a big open room.
Mm-hmm.
If it were filled with things, it would be less echoey.
Right.
But it's a nice facility, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
we like it.
Well, that's why we're here, to try to help solve that, and what can we use it for? What else? Yes, sir.
One of the things you have not done is define the resources of this town hall as it has changed with the closure of the Emma. And to the degree that public meeting space exists here and is available with a simple form and without extraordinary expenses for providing an indemnification to the town for the meeting, most of the meeting space issues in the town are solved. How do you address that in your preliminary thinking?
No, because we're looking for you to bring that up, which you just did, so that's good to know, that the need that was once there for this, in some ways, has been solved by this building coming online.
Secondly, when the old new town hall was new, Karen Brown pushed explicitly to have community access on the simplest terms available to the town. And to the best of my knowledge, there is not, for example, a scissors gate. There are not infrared sensors to protect the town workspace. And I don't know what the use form is for the meeting at this facility.
This facility or
This
that?
this facility
Okay.
here, which has replaced the Emma.
Okay, so
And
that,
in point of fact, few meetings have been held at the old townhouse under discussion.
okay. Good information. What else has been held?
Just another from the past. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's where we voted there and we had our town meetings there with a wood stove to heat the building.
Okay, and now where are town meetings?
High school.
High school, okay. You're still a town meeting town, right?
No,
Yeah.
You're at SB2.
SB2.
Okay, so you do deliberative and then voting. And voting is where?
high school.
High school.
High school.
Okay. What else was held there? It's an old building, there's a lot of mileage on it. So what else have been held there?
So I thought I turned you off.
Has anybody ever utilized the building for a private event, rented it or used it for, okay,
There have been a few private events over there.
okay.
They've had meet candidates nights, and they've had other private meetings set up.
Big sales.
Yep.
Okay. What do people feel are the barriers to utilizing the building? Water. So that the facilities are not available unless the building's brought up.
Well, there's water at the building, but during the winter, it's winterized because we don't use it. But there is water at the facility now. There's a new well. And
Heat.
heat is,
conditioning.
we have heat in there, yeah, because we've got mini splits in there for heat.
And
One of
that's-
the issues has been parking.
Okay.
Obviously, we've got the area across the street, but that grassed-in area over there, but
To clarify, the mini splits are providing heat and
And air.
air conditioning, so
Yep.
the building is air conditioned, right? Okay.
lighting inside the building, being an old building,
Mhm.
also is a restrictive issue at times, because if you're in there, it takes a while to adjust to the dimmer lights and things like that, so that's been an issue for some events.
There's a new set of Emma.
I understand that, but the lights are still up higher, and they're not the brightest of lights when you're in there trying to run certain events.
Okay.
The
Anything-
grass
It-
parking across the street,
It has a
Um,
kitchen. Oh, yeah.
when it's that open area right there, yeah.
We looked at that, yes.
It can be a little swampy.
Can be swampy, okay.
The last time I parked in there, we had puddles and mud, and then had to walk through that to get to the townhouse.
Right, so then we're faced with, we're parking in here, and we need to cross the road. Well, first we have to kind of make our way through this wooded area, right? Not,
There's a there's a driveway there.
there
but
is a
it's-
driveway there, we saw that, but you're walking now, you've parked, so now you gotta walk. And then you've gotta cross the road, right?
And there's limited visibility, as you guys saw when we were down there.
Mm-hmm.
And having a crosswalk area, it's limited visibility around that bend right there.
Sir.
In point of fact, some 40 years ago, Charlotte Stewart donated the parcel that the police station presently sits on, which is directly to the north side of that Y intersection.
Yeah, that's this right here.
On the hope that the town would move the old townhouse across the road and make it a parcel uninterrupted by road traffic. That didn't happen. They put in a nondescript ranch house for the police station instead. The plan to close off the north side leg of the Y languished, and the building was never moved.
Okay.
But the parking can be improved with the addition of gravel. A small intermittent stream has been lost, which used to feed a horseshoe-shaped watering for the horses, hence the black rail around the building.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How do people feel about that building being moved? Not that we're proposing that, I just want to put that out there, because we heard that the day we were there visiting the site, that at one time it was thought about maybe picking this building up and moving it over here. How do people feel about that? Any thoughts? Would it be okay, or would you like not to see it moved? Yes,
I'm new
ma'am.
to town, but is that its original location?
It is,
It is? Okay.
ma'am.
I'd be okay with it if we got rid of the trees, because I think it's important to be able to see it as you're driving by. I think it's an icon.
The issue, and I just wanted to discuss the issue of closing one of these. This is a very unique section of road, of the state road, and that the sight lines coming in either direction make it very difficult to close either one of these without rebuilding this entire area. Because you do have a campground down this road, and as someone that tows an RV, if you close this one, it's very difficult to pull out going going south out of here or going north out of here for sight lines. And this one, there's no way to turn going south, pulling like a 35-foot trailer. So the state has definitely, the consideration of that is probably not going to happen anytime soon. But that said, that wouldn't preclude this from being picked up and moved. So I wanted to just ask, is that something, or would that just meet all kinds of resistance because that's its original location and there it should stay?
I'm kind of there with you.
Okay, I'm not either place. It's my job to ask the question, and so as we leave this meeting tonight, we will go back and come up with options and ideas and show them next time. I don't want to come up with, well, what if we move the building if there's resistance to that? And that's okay. Ma'am.
The Historical Society right now is in a building in Milton Mills that we've been trying to raise money to fix the building because we have serious leak issues. That building has no water, no handicap access, there's a lot of issues. And we have a pretty sizable collection. I'm in the process of re-archiving it. And we're talking in the neighborhood of 40 or 50,000 items. Most of it paper, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot, I mean, we have the hand of God. They know what that means. If you know what the hand of God is? It was on a steeple of of a church. It's a giant hand.
Okay.
It's the hand of God, literally.
Mhm.
And so access to our collection is very limited. Some of our elders can't get into the building that we're currently in. And we've been trying as a group to look for other locations
Mhm.
within the town and work with the town, because the town owns the library that we're in right now, the building we're in.
Mhm.
And they don't want to fix it because it's in the neighborhood of $150,000 just for the roof and steeple and things like that.
So were you wondering if this might be a location?
Oh, we would love it.
What are people's thoughts about that? I'll come back to you. If this building were to have a permanent tenant, so to speak.
We could be open more. That's,
So again, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just asking questions. You know, if this building had a permanent tenant that put it to use, or do we think there are other uses along the way that would let this building be used often enough that could justify it being kept as it is? Sir,
Yep, so I think, as we've probably discussed, we don't want to move it, but it's outgrown the town. The town has outgrown it as far as major meetings and stuff like that. I think having something like the Historical Society there, as well as smaller meetings, like they said, the cemetery trustees and things like that, can keep the tradition alive as a meeting house, would fulfill the needs better without having to do major things to the building or move it or things like that. And it could still serve its purpose and, help them out with the Historical Society. I live in Milton Mills. I see the building they're in now, and it's a beautiful building. Don't get me wrong; it's neat. The architecture is amazing, but it is longing to.
I mean, the reality of it is that New England, and New Hampshire in particular, I've done work in many communities on the white clapboard historic buildings of all types, right? Every community has at least one. Many communities have several, right? And as churches fail, and they end up with more. And what do we do with all of these buildings? We've outgrown a lot of them, and the uses, they can't sustain what they were originally built for. And how do we justify maintaining them? And something that I say often when I work is they can't sit and look pretty. We have a lot of museums, but every white clapboard historic building can't be a museum that just sits and uses money to maintain it. So how do we use them? How do we justify their existence? Ma'am, you had a point you wanted to make.
Well, I was wondering if it were used by the Historical Society, if they had their permanent home there, could it still be used for other events? Would how much space of it would you, because there's only that one room, right?
right, it's just one big room with the little stage where the voting booths are. We've thrown ideas around ourselves. We could fill it up, trust me.
Really?
Trust me.
But as a historical society.
There are ways
Right.
to make it so that people could, if they wanted to have a smaller meeting there, could. I mean, it solves our problem in that it has a bathroom. It has running water. It has heating and cooling. The facility we're in right now does not.
Does it have a handicap access?
Yes.
This does.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing, and I have to ask this question, has the building ever been kept open all winter, or does it definitely need to be closed in the winter?
It could be.
It could be open,
It could
it's just, like as Andy was starting to say, it could be open, but because we don't use it, it's safer to turn around and.
Okay, and I just
winterize
wanted
it.
to ask that question for,
Yeah.
if someone would occupy it, is it prohibitively expensive to run in the winter? It doesn't, it sounds like it could be done.
Well, it's
What
not
we're
cheap
doing
running that in the winter.
What we do at the library in Milton Mills is try to open one weekend a month, run by volunteers to let people come in and look at the collection. But with the leaks and stuff, stuff got moved. So we're fighting a space that we can't really work at
Yep.
without money.
So this building here, if you were, and I'm just gonna throw a scenario out there. So if the Historical Society were in this building, it might be that, get through the holidays, and then it closes for January and February, which are arguably the most expensive months to run a building. So if it were closed for 2 months, and then you open again in March, which it gets now, it gets a little, we're not Florida yet, but it's a little more seasonable. So it's arguably, you could be open 10 months of the year, and then 2 months of the year, because legally, it's hard to justify opening that building to heat it for a weekend here or there, and you can't turn off and on the water like that.
Right,
And you can't open legally without restrooms.
correct.
So if you were to, I'm just putting this out there, if you were to, let's say, you don't have to speak for the Historical Society, but as a scenario, if you were open 10 months of the year, how would that work?
That we'd have to discuss, but
Off
I
the
think
top of
there
your
would be
head.
the interest in the town if we were open more so that people could come and not only look at the stuff, but do research. Everybody I've mentioned, the Historical Society too, says, oh, I really want to know about my house.
Mhm.
Well, until we know what we have, which is why I'm doing the archiving right now, you can't really do research.
So then, a Historical Society also has the need for something like a conference table, would have meetings at and such like that, so the building could be open to other groups to meet there if there's a conference area, right? So suddenly, this idea of multi-purpose comes into play, and the building suddenly has a reason to exist and be maintained, and it's by a group, in this scenario, and this isn't the only one, but in this scenario, a group that would have the interest of the historic integrity of the building, and it would kind of all work together, right? Possible, yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll get to you in a second.
What you're missing is the archival standards for preservation of collections, which is, Farm Museum faces the same problem. If you have an uncontrolled atmosphere, you have problems of humidity, you have problems of temperature swings. The advantage of this building is the on-site parking, the ADA access, modern bathrooms, running water, small kitchen, which wasn't mentioned, new electrical heating systems, an open floor plan with wonderful daylight windows, adaptable for displays from the Historical Society collections, or for conference and small talks on history, which is part of the money that they have been raising through the bake sales, of which I have been part. And it's available for the public tourist with local brochures straight through the paper leaf season.
Mhm.
And plus, as was noted, it's on the town seal. The Milton Mills Historical Society building would be an ideal subject for a $1 sale and rehab of its historical facade. I have more detail on
So
that.
there's a lot there, right? So then you just gave us a lot of,
And what I was gonna say is that, and you guys saw the inside the building, because the building is closed up as much as it is.
right,
No light, no air flow and things like that. The inside's starting to deteriorate, so all the work that was done starts falling by the wayside. So the building, in order for it to be able to be maintained, needs to be utilized on a more permanent basis.
exactly. And you know, when the building is heated, cooled, light gets in,
Yeah.
it actually stays in better shape than
Right.
when it sits there.
Right
all
now,
fall,
it just
right?
sits idle, so it gets cold while it's, sitting, and then it gets hot during the summer if it's not being utilized, so that constant
I can tell you
change
the
will
Milton
be an issue.
Mills Library, which is where we went in there the other day to get some more stuff for me to bring home to work on, and it was colder in the building than it was out of the building.
And there are ways, so we've done archive buildings for historical records, and the reality of it is we also did a museum down in Francistown, which was in an old historic building, and some of it, we bought a case system, which stays controlled while the building is shut down in the winter, so you don't need to, so you can keep your historic documents controlled without the whole building having to be heated or cooled, so. So there's a lot of ways.
That would be
so-
wonderful. Please.
So, well, okay, we have a lot to cover, but I don't, but this is this is an icon and it needs to be used. Any other ideas that anybody has for this building or, okay. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Mike.
Mike. So Mike, no, I mean, of course, we're not making any decisions tonight, and I am, you
I
know.
thought we had a checkbook ready to go.
Right? And I'm totally on board with, I would love to see more people here tonight from the town, to, you know, give their opinions and ask questions and so forth. I think it's a great idea. So say if the Historical Society did end up utilizing this building, pretty much like a birthday party, a wedding shower, any types of those events probably would be
It's just flat trails, but you.
not happening.
It's hard to say. I mean,
It becomes a little more challenging, but not undoable from personal experience.
you know, yeah, it depends on how you organize the case system. Right now, we have all these antique cases that were
It does become a
donated.
security issue, but my question then to that is, how many of those do you think realistically of events like that might happen there?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, we haven't advertised this. We're working on a plan ourselves as the select board, you know, on renting buildings. We don't even have a rental agreement yet. We're working on that. And so, I mean, I think there is a little bit of a small need for, you know, a building to have, because usually most people, they'd go like down to the Moose and rent underneath the Moose for a baby shower or something. I've had people.
Would they use this, or would they rather go to Moose? So that's a question.
Well, the
For
Moose
me,
has got a bar.
For me, I would, yeah, I mean, Moose has a bar, but, I guess you probably wanna get drunk if you knew you're having a baby, but,
That's a whole nother discussion.
Just an aside, the Historical Society, for a number of years, long before I moved to Milton, has been having a once-a-year yard sale and have raised a considerable amount of money. Not enough to repair the building we're in currently, but there is some money available that would allow us to, we started exploring looking for a building to rent. So, I'm
So-
not saying we can, but the town owns the library in Milton Mills. They can't afford to fix it, we can't afford to fix it. It's a lovely building, but there's no way to put a bathroom in, there, you know, there's all
So
kinds of
therefore-
issues.
So this actually starts to be that, if so that's one of the options here, right?
But the
question-
idea being that we wouldn't ask for a facility free, like we're getting right now, and would be willing to talk rent and maintaining it and making it available.
Right, and so there's options for that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I do want to do, though, so we don't, because we do have two other
There,
properties.
yeah, two other
but-
properties,
But
don't
we
let
do
me
want to,
talk.
are there any, you know, what do people feel about, you know, the idea of this building staying as it is, as an open building, and being available for public use, or, you know, not town meetings, but I want to have a birthday party or a family reunion there. How much of that realistically would happen enough to justify it not being used for something like, and it could be another use, not just the Historical Society?
Well, we don't know because there's no system in place, and there's not even a timely system, if you call it that, for anybody that would be interested in doing those things. They have to wait for a select board meeting to get the go-ahead, and that's a time issue. There's no process, and there's no advertising, that's already been said. You know, to do something like have a wedding, or, you know, an anniversary party in a historic building, is something that people really love today. But they have to know it's there, and they have to know that it's available, they have to know how much it costs, and how far in advance they have to do do the booking.
And
We
for,
don't have any of that.
for that to happen, we have to remember that we would have to do some significant work to make parking really available and make it so it's safe to cross.
Either way, you have to do that.
You do. Either way, that building, that needs to be done. My next question is on that, I forgot what it is, so we'll go right on.
You didn't even walk through a door.
Yes, sir.
The locals call it clabbered, not clap.
I get that, yes, we do.
In Downton Abbey, they open the great castle to the visitors, and the butler says, "Shall we shake them out for teaspoons as they leave?" A problem of having a general public event in a historic collection building. But I would like to take 1 minute and move this box from the old townhouse to the Historical Society, which is in the center of gentrification of Milton Mills. And it would be equally possible to put in historic covenants and protections, sell the property with those covenants and protections, include the historic facade, include the ownership of the clock to the town, and include such conditions that in failure, everything reverted to the town. That would bring in residential housing, bring the property onto the tax base, and get rid of the problems of ADA access and the lack of bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. Very good point.
53 seconds.
Nice job. Anything else on this building before we kind of?
Yeah,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
sort of actually as a lead-in, you asked about how we feel about it being used for weddings and birthday parties, and personally, I think I'd rather see something at Town Beach for the weddings and the birthday parties and have the Old Town Hall
Hold
be
that thought.
used for the Historical Society.
Okay. One thing I remembered, weddings though tend to be, this building has a limitation of people in it. And so therefore, the wedding, any kind of event would need to be fairly small. And it even comes down to the building is posted for occupants, but the reality of it is, I doubt that it's done correctly. The reality is when you set up those round tables that people sit at, when someone's chair is out and this chair is out, there has to be a certain amount of feet between those. So the capacity of that building for a catered event or a sit-down meal is probably a fraction of what's posted. So that's something you consider, that there is a true limitation on that building if you follow the rules. And then we all know about that, but I think you have to be considerate about that and how many weddings are really less than 40 or 50 people. So smaller birthday parties, something possibly, but I think that's something all to consider here. So any other thoughts on this building before we move on?
And just in closing, I just wanted to play the devil advocate and just throw, another idea out there. That's really the only reason why I said that. I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here.
No,
and,
we have to hear it all.
Right.
That's why we're
But
here.
I'm totally on board. It seemed like a lot of people here were in favor of
Well, I
it.
think you may see moving vans there tomorrow with the historical collection sitting in the driveway waiting to go into it.
Seriously, you haven't seen my dining room.
But thank you for doing that, because someone needs to. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the town beach. So, does anyone recall when the town beach property was built? Someone that's been here in town a long time probably remembers that property, though. It's probably here
For
most.
some reason, 1927, when Charlotte Stewart's father, who owned their house, donated that money to the town so we could have a beach for everybody that could use it. But I don't know that I've got the date right.
Okay,
I'd have to look at my Milton history books that I taught the third graders for 1,000 years.
so it's been a long time that this has been, and
27, you said?
1927-ish.
We can ask the historian over here.
We'd have to look.
We can look that up. But it doesn't look like a lot's been done since then,
Oh, yes.
right?
Oh, the ball field, the fencing, the lack of parking, the gazebo, the tree being gone, a lot's been done.
Playground.
What about the restrooms, though?
That needs to be upgraded, as you saw.
So obviously, it's a beautiful property, right? And I think there's probably no argument that it's underutilized. But what is it utilized and how is it utilized? We heard a little bit, we know about the summer camp for kids that the rec department does. What else goes on there besides hanging out at the beach or the ball fields?
Isn't it the trunk or treat for Halloween? Isn't that where they do that?
Okay,
There's different, we have different events. You've got boating events down there. You've
Fishing,
had
that's
some of the-
fishing derby.
They've had different fairs or things like that down there at times too, but the summer kickoff, is the part with the boat.
The winter carnival.
And that winter carnival.
Ice fishing and the snow and the hot air balloons.
Yeah. So there's been a number of events, but as you know that down there, as far as the facilities are very limited. The beach is fine, but it needs work, but the buildings are definitely very limited, and the space for the kids is very limited. It's basically just under a canopy, whereas the reality is when we talk down there, having a building that would be more functional down there, well, that would make it a lot more beneficial. You could have the bathrooms and that, and have an access area for kids, more of a community type of thing.
so if, to that point, if there was a better building at the beach that was more of a community center that was multi-purpose.
It could be used for venues.
Right, so therefore, the venues that we were thinking, or that this might be there for, maybe we have a better place here for that, right? And I'm not coming up with ideas, but,
Unfortunately, though, there's just not a lot of space down there. I'm actually on the rec commission, and I think if you were gonna do any building facilities like that, you would have to unfortunately utilize the ball field.
possibly. Okay, and did we, one second, I have one question. And the boat ramp is being addressed, right? Is
Yeah,
it-
we're working on matter of fact, we're working on a plan. We just found a contractor. We're gonna have a meeting this week to try to finalize getting that resolved. Finally getting that resolved here in the next month.
So
Yes.
it's sounding like, so what else could happen here besides children's summer camp, the kickoff, the balloon fest, the fishing derbies,
Concerts.
concerts? Okay,
So we do have concerts in the summer there. Unfortunately, probably not advertised as well as I'd like them to be, but we had 4 or 5 concerts there this summer. I went once and there was quite a few people there.
if you were to guess, how many people were at that, just roughly?
I'd say
You see the
maybe
left field side of
40.
Okay,
Newt High School had an all-years reunion there this summer. So that was another place.
Yeah.
Another
had a
activity.
They had a reunion there for alumni.
so this starts to sound like it's really kind of a hub, right, of community activity. And sounds, there was a time when these types of buildings, churches, were the hub of social life in these communities, but as the world's changed and things have changed, a place like this has a lot more flexibility and brings a lot more people together. So so we know we have a dire need for restrooms there, some sort of building, and whether it's back here, whether it's up here, that remains to be seen. Yes, sir.
Well, the in and out layout and the parking areas use up way too much space. So you have to get rid of the paradigm of what you're looking at.
That's what we do.
And that's what I'm reminding you of.
Yes.
Is that you can't continue with a way in and a way out with a rain garden in the middle. There are other things that could be done to save space, to, make sure that the in and the out is just one road, not two. And that gives you a little bit more room to do things.
There's a lot of options. I'm gonna go to this.
I just have a question. When you said, like, maybe using the ball field for a building, are we talking about reducing the size of the ball field, getting rid of the ball field? Because that is definitely needed.
I'm not going, because I think there's a lot of ways to plan that we don't need the ball field. I don't want to come up with solutions tonight. We're just looking for problems and needs. We are going to take our professionalism and take a crack at this and see what it looks like, but understanding that this is a pretty utilized element of this park.
Soccer as well, I think, too.
It is soccer.
I'm already on that issue about the in and out, so.
So, yes, ma'am.
One comment and one suggestion. I think part of the reasoning for the in and out, and one thing that will, and you've probably heard this, but inspecting boats before they go in the water is really important, and there has to be room for that. There has to be space to be able to inspect boats to make sure they're not carrying invasive species. This is a really part of making sure our 3 pond stays in good shape. So that
So let
does
me
have a
ask,
space.
is that done by the person at the gatehouse, or, wait,
I don't
or is
know.
it done by a host down by the boat ramp?
I don't know how it's done.
Gatehouse, so as I pull in with my boat, pay my fee, if I'm a non-resident, it's done there, and then I go.
The suggestion I had is there any way to also include a farmer's market in that space?
Well, I don't know, but if that's something, do we have a farmer's market in town now?
No.
Okay, all right, so perhaps, something that allows for that. A lot of these facilities, we have to remember, become multi-purpose. They can do this, they can do that, you can host this, you can have that. It isn't that, it's something for one use, and that's all it gets used for. That isn't a good use of money. Yes.
So the rec commission is talking about bathrooms, it's on our agenda, we've talked about it. And we're talking about, different avenues, where it can be moved, where it'd be better suited. So bathrooms are, being discussed right now. There's a ton of grant money out there, for these types of, additions. So we are looking at new bathrooms.
And where bathrooms come in, septic comes in with that, right? And with the lake and all that, but under ball fields is a good place for septic. Yes, sir.
It would be uncharitable of me to suggest the town blundered some 20 years ago when it lost the opportunity to buy the parcel directly to the north edge of the ball field. Since I never said that, more positive ideas. Pony wall with the incredible stressed skin fabric of an appropriate size would provide under protection for boat inspection. Thinking outside the box, manufactured housing is very popular. Buy one and specify the locations of the bathrooms and plop it on the existing foundation at an easy suggestions for how to improve the property. If you go down the Taconic Parkway, you will see a stressed skin salt storage facility that New York State DOT, very cheap, I lived there, put in. It's been there for 20 years, no visible damage. Amortize that out, and it's very inexpensive to get good coverage and even summer rain programs for the kids.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
One of the things I leaned over and said to Larry is thinking outside the box, and this isn't a BOS thing, this is mine, but looking at that ball field and understanding the history of baseball in New England and like Fenway Park, there is no reason why you couldn't put a higher wall on that side of the field to be able to put something underneath it, like he said, either boat coverage for doing inspections in that area or even a building that could be up against that side without taking anything away from the ballpark. But on top of it, we're not gonna put a septic into that. There's sewer right on 125.
Okay.
So
Good to
we'd be
know.
able to actually run a sewer line out to me.
Are you connected to that now out here?
No, that would be something that would have to be done, but it's basically just running it out.
Yeah. So getting it out here somewhere, yeah. Great, that's good to know. I mean, boat inspections take minutes, right? I mean, I have mine done, every time I launch, and it's minutes, that it's not a long process. When you have a line.
We need a better way to do it, because at the gatehouse is not the best place to do it. I know that's where we've got the kids working, but the thing is it gets backed up, the way it gets set up, and if you're backed out to the street, then that becomes.
And if you're the car that's behind 6 boats waiting to get in, it's a long wait.
If that gets adjusted, like Bruce mentioned, when you adjust the way the entrance and exit is to the thing, you can shift that in a new manner.
Right. Do you get much in and out traffic day boaters, or is it a water?
There's a combination of all kinds of things like
Okay.
that, yeah.
What else about the beach park?
I mean, the playground and the basketball court are utilized like I've never seen. We put that playground up as a community, and it is like, just makes me smile every time I go by there.
Yeah.
So,
It's used every day. Rain, almost rain or shine, I see parents over there with their kids.
It's good to see kids
Every day.
outside, right? Yes, sir.
One thing I noticed is a small problem, this may not have anything to do with that, but the way that the ball field is now, of all the kids I've had go through baseball, where home plate is, over 50% of the foul balls hit end up in the road. There was a giant net
Yeah,
at
what
one
happened to
point,
that?
it must have been a 30-foot net that went along the road, which I haven't seen up in quite a few years now. I retrieve probably 11 balls a game,
Yeah.
and I'm surprised they've yet to hit a car. At least last year, they didn't hit a car. I don't know if moving the diamond to the top right or something would change things, but I mean, if there's gonna be a lot of major stuff going on there, you may wanna at least
I
consider.
think we'll look at the orientation of
the
that, right,
orientation
Drew?
of the ball field,
You know,
so
I
it
mean,
doesn't-
Right now, it's the batters are looking
If
in.
we have a batter over here, though, we might need a green monster here if they're really good. But we'll look at that. What is the age bracket that's playing on this field? Is it all ages?
all ages.
Okay. Because it's different for, T-ball and up, then you get to,
Yeah, right up
middle
to
school, but then they can hit a home run from here.
High school plays their games there.
Oh, they do? Okay. So then, good to know. What else about the beach park? Is there anything that went on there years ago that doesn't go on there, or is there more happening there now than did in years past?
We used to have a lifeguard, and we used to have free swimming lessons for all the kids, and that I've missed. We used to have a diving raft, they got taken out.
Does rec department do swimming lessons?
No, unfortunately, so the diving raft was taken away because people just love to sue people. And so the liability of, and I agree with her, I mean, I love that diving raft, I used to use it. So that's gone because of that matter. We don't have lifeguards anymore because our town lawyer said that it's cheaper for us to make it a non-lifeguard a facility and have it posted, no lifeguards. So that's why there's no lifeguards there.
Which is probably why there's no swimming lessons.
And that's probably why, I mean, they pondered around with some swimming lessons, but it wasn't like she talked about. The swimming lessons are pretty much gone. But it's the liability on the other two
Yeah.
things.
I get that. That's a tough one.
Any additional, like pickleball, tennis, any other additional sports?
Do you
that-
have places for pickleball and that stuff in town elsewhere?
I have a question about, the pink house is just to the south of the ball field there? Yeah.
That's this here?
Do we know if that is still a going concern and maybe that land would be available to purchase?
I mean, it's owned by a gentleman in town who chooses to use it for whatever he wants. Unfortunately, it used to be a really good ice cream joint.
But he does it all in the truck now.
Yeah, so, if you wanted to go down and offer him probably $1 million.
The Historical Society should buy them. Yes, sir. Oh, we'll get to you in a second. Go ahead.
The impact of outside forces. In February of '98, Pharmacy, we had ice cutting down on the town beach. The ice was 21 inches deep. We loaded it, cut it by hand, loaded it into a mule-drawn carriage, and took it up to the Farm Museum for winter storage. That type of, you talked to Karen Brown, our rec director, that kind of experience will be tapering off.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a place on a lake up in Belgrade, Lake Maine, and the ice used to be 36 inches thick when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, and last winter, the main basin never froze. So, I mean, we are, and on our property is what was the ice house for the inn that what these houses were part of. So, definitely changing times. Did you have a point?
I was just curious, you had said maybe doing a building or something for the rec kids, and then they were talking about the ice cream. Like, I wonder what it would look like if part of the building could be kind of like a little store, because a lot of people go have young kids.
Concession?
Yeah, and who doesn't forget stuff when you have little kids?
Or what you bring, they decide they don't want, and they want something else.
But even having like a couple of floaties or swim diapers or.
Yep, so a concession, we've done several park facilities. In fact, Drew and I worked on one for the town of Antrim at their beach, and it has a concession in it. Yes?
So what we thought about is, and we'll give it to you, Bruce, sorry. What we thought about as the rec commission is, we're looking at maybe a possible, a portable ice skating rink for the winter, because like you mentioned, the ice just doesn't freeze like it used to.
And then it's not good.
It's hard to maintain. A lot of kids love to ice skate, but it's hard to maintain the pond with all the different types of, and climates that we get. Another thing we thought about down there was renting canoes, renting, kayaks. We've tossed that around at the rec commission level. So there is some things that is.
That stuff is liability.
I was saying, you better make it private if you're gonna be.
Well, I was gonna say, so in Antrim, there's an area for, they brought a vendor in that does it, but they at least provided something, so.
The rec can allow that to be done, but it would have to be a vendor.
And you actually lease it, so therefore you get a few bucks from it.
Preliminary, we haven't made, or showing movies down there. We've talked
Summer
about.
movies are great.
We've talked about buying a big movie screen, putting it on the baseball field and having movie night.
Fun.
So it's just, you gotta buy all the copyrights and there's a lot to it, but it can be done.
It can be. It's a license fee for that. I've done that. Yes.
So we did our site walk, and I was there.
Yes, you were.
I recall that we didn't walk down to the extreme southeast side of the property, which it used to be a wooded grove, and I'm not sure now whether there's grills that are still there.
There is.
And whether we would keep that, there's picnic tables and grills.
Does that get utilized often?
All summer.
Yeah,
Good
well,
to know.
that's
So
what I
that's
brought
good
it
to
up
know.
because we didn't bring it up at all.
No, I know, we didn't get out, you're right, we didn't get down there, Bruce.
That's another source of income, is renting out little, you put a structure up there for shade and then a grill next to it, you can rent that out.
There's individual grills and picnic tables that people can use, but then if you had a pavilion there that people could rent for a family reunion or get together, that's another source of helping to generate income.
Wouldn't that be more appealing if there were another like small playground or something down low? Because if you're gonna do a function like that down at the beach and you have young kids, someone's gonna have to go up towards the road with them, and it might be a little bit more functional if there was something.
So I think there's some criteria around that in planning these that talks about that. What else? Yes, sir.
Sorry. Internally, one of the things that needs to be done is magnificent pine tree died and is now the Ferry House pine tree. Recreation of leaf cover as the sun becomes more sunny. And I don't think that's been addressed. If I'm wrong, I'm not on the commission, but it should be addressed in replacement of trees as they age.
I think there's a lot of room here for some vegetation that takes a lot of what's going on back here and stops it from getting to the lake. And there's precedence for how you treat a park and natural vegetation and water recharge and all of that. That becomes, yes, ma'am.
Again, one comment that I'd like to convey from someone I know who wasn't able to attend tonight, and it might be more appropriate for the next one, but maybe for this one, she said she would love to see more activities for the elderly and for very young people, such as mothers groups. She says getting people out and to talk to other people and playing with children is very beneficial. So you mentioned community center, I was thinking that type of thing. The other thing I wanted to say is, I don't know if anybody's talked to you, that we had a problem with geese and poop on the beach. And so that's
That's a problem everywhere.
yeah, so I don't know how to take that into account, but you should just know about it. I don't know if it's currently a problem, but it has been in past years.
Geese
A Maine
proofing is,
coon cat
geese,
would be-
yeah, right, Maine coon cat. Geese proofing is not the easiest thing to do. I'll leave that up to you, Mr. Landscape Architect.
Geese don't like to walk into meadows and weeds, and high grass. So I was thinking we have opportunity, and part of that beach is we have opportunity to grow some high grass and stuff, just to keep them focused in one area where the people are, then they won't go there because people are there. But now it's wide open for them. So.
Yeah, it's really, end to end, is perfect territory for
The
geese.
blue on there, just to let everybody know, is the flood zone.
I'm glad to know you're thinking about it. Thank you.
Anything else about the beach park? Is there anything we haven't asked? Anything you haven't had an opportunity to tell us? Okay.
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
just want to say
okay,
one
yeah.
more thing, is that it is really important for this town and for myself on the Conservation Commission to make sure that none of the additions, changes negatively impact the water quality.
So New Hampshire DES will make very sure of that, because I deal with them regularly, and they are very good at protecting the bodies of water, which is great. I wish they would protect Winnipesaukee more than they do, but that's okay. Let's hope we can do this here. And Maine is like right across the way, right?
Not right there.
Well, not right there.
Okay.
Okay.
But they don't have any say over here.
Yeah, that's
Maine's even,
But I mean,
Maine's even
even if
tougher.
DES isn't doing it, you obviously have to think about it.
But that's, as professionals, we just automatically think along those lines, right? It's all about this is why we're here. And, one of the point I wanted to make earlier is that all of this stuff, this white clapboard building, all of our lakes, all of this stuff is our brand. That's why people come to New Hampshire. You all live here because of the atmosphere around. We don't think of the old townhouse, maybe not the beach, but everything around it is our brand. And New Hampshire is a vacation destination. So we want to make it so people want to be here, right? So, and that you want to live here, and that there are reasons for our children to come back when they go off to college or wherever they do, that people want to come back here. So it's our brand.
Just so you know, in closing, on the beach is self-funded, okay? There's no tax revenue that goes into that beach.
Okay,
Other than a couple of couple of warrant articles to help fix the boat ramp.
yeah,
So that beach is self-funded, not one dime of taxpayers' money, other than the rec director, her salary, goes into that beach. It's self-funded through the gate revenue.
and is that set up as an ordinance, or is that how, or,
Set up through the rec commission when, back in, I think Karen said in the 40s, there was a rec commission that took place. And it was set up through the rec commission. The town did have say of it at one point, and then it changed over to the rec commission. And since it's changed over to the rec commission, the beach has come a long ways,
okay.
in my opinion. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Good to know. So, is there anything preventing the town, I have to ask this, that the town can spend money on it? It is a town-owned property, right?
I mean, yeah, we're gonna spend, the town, we got a grant to fix the boat ramp. It's 90,000 grant, and the through the gate revenues is gonna fix the rest of the boat ramp.
Okay.
So it's another almost 100,000 that's being paid from the gate revenues to fix that boat ramp.
So then, you're all taxpayers. How would you feel about spending money on the park that has to go beyond gate revenue? If anything were to be done down there, it might go beyond what gate revenue could support. So how do people feel about that? I mean, none of us like to spend money, I get it, but if we're gonna better this park, what do you think?
Touchy subject.
I get it, but I have to ask you.
Well, I think it would depend upon how it happened. If it was like a one-time thing and then the rep could then fund it going forward, I think that would be a better sell than saying it would be perpetually in the town budget.
I needed to hear that, because it's a one-time thing to get, let's just get something built, but then if we, we all designed this so it's self-sustaining, and the the opportunity for it to be self-sustaining, I just wanted to understand that. Because sometimes these things get set up that the town can't, because of the way that the property was given to the town, and there's all these rules and regs that we just need to kind of fish out. So we're coming up with something like, well, we can't do that because the RSA says this or whatever, right? Okay. Anything else about the beach? All right. Whatever you want to call this, was the Catholic Church, was the town offices, it's now called the Ramsey. Who's actually, besides going in there when it was the town offices, have any of you been to anything that's gone on there? Is there anything that's gone on that anyone's been part of?
Yeah, back in the day. Back in the day, we used to have Cub Scout breakfast downstairs. They'd use the kitchen to do things like that. And
Yeah.
I remember back when we were young, the church was still there. So, but yeah, we did a lot of community events back then for scouts and stuff.
Okay. Where do those events go now? Legion?
To the Legion Hall, but it's very
Some of the
limited. So we
events
haven't had
are-
a scout breakfast in a while because the Legion's limited.
Some of the stuff is right up here, right down the hall. We moved the Emma Ramsey sign and everything else to the other end of this building.
But,
So, a lot of the things that were done downstairs in the building, which was the Emma Ramsey Center, are now being done up here.
okay, because, and I think when we came in, there was an exercise.
Yeah, they've got a
class
class going on down there. That was one of the things.
Let me just ask one thing first. Hold your thought, though. So we haven't been doing breakfast because we have no place to have them and the Legion isn't adequate?
Well, back when we did scout stuff, I don't know, the scouting programs changed too, but like the Legion doesn't have the facility to do a breakfast like the Emma Ramsey did. We had a full kitchen set up with everything.
They do it here.
Yeah, they can do it here now.
Do it. We
So
do.
do you have a
and
kitchen?
They do things,
Kitchen
in the
here?
full kitchen here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's where I was going with that. So we do, so that exists, okay.
Whatever we did there, we can do here.
Okay.
And then some, because the
As a matter of
space.
fact, there's more room up here now than there was back then.
Okay, so then, what do people see, or what kinds of things are we missing in town that might happen at this property? And think of it as the property as the building and the parking lot, or something different.
Elderly housing. That was one of the things we.
I gotta get to Larry, because he,
Yeah.
Two things were crossed. One, it was the simplest thing in the world as a community group. You called Karen or her deputy at the time, and you say, hey, I need the key for the Emma. You got the key for the Emma, had your meeting that evening, gave the key back the next day. We also had, in addition to the Boy Scout breakfast, we had a hunter's breakfast with a god-awful, wonderful amount of sausage. And so those were uses of the Emma, and we can continue here. But are you now talking about projected uses for that parcel both sides of the road?
well, I wanted to say, is there anything that what used to be go on there that doesn't happen there aside from Catholic Mass? Is there anything that was there that we have no place to have in town currently?
No.
Okay. So that said, let's think about use. What are we missing that this facility, either as it exists now or as a vacant piece of land, someone brought up senior housing. What other things are we missing?
Just affordable housing, period. There aren't that many apartments or things available in town. I know it's a problem everywhere that affordable housing,
The problem is the term affordable, as an architect, no house is affordable. That's
I
part
know.
of the issue. Building isn't really affordable these days, for a lot of reasons.
I think elderly is a very good idea.
What is it?
Elderly housing is a
Okay.
very good idea.
Good.
Very limited around here.
The reason why, I'm all for senior housing is, it's less impact on our school system. There's a great need for it. There's a lot of grants out there for it. And I just think that it would probably be a big win.
Yes, ma'am.
elderly housing can be a misnomer, because when I think of elderly housing, I think of subsidized housing. There are developers that feel that elderly housing is for your condos, your expensive units, because the elderly have equity that they can trade into a smaller facility. And I do not want that kind of facility
So
here.
let's expand on that, okay? So then, when you think of elderly housing, right, is it more that I'm not there yet, but I will be. Am I renting it, or is it something you're selling and condoizing?
Renting.
Renting.
Yeah.
Renting.
With the
Renting
senior
at
center
a
and things like that.
subsidized rate, because we have elderly in this community that they don't have the physical stamina or the financial ability to maintain their houses, but they can't afford to move anywhere. So their house is going to deteriorate over time, so they can pass their years here. But their church community is here, their friends when they raise their family are here. They do not want to leave Milton. But they can't afford to go someplace in Rochester. I mean, where are they gonna move to that's gonna be the same cost?
It is a problem.
Just like she said, my mom just went to live in Rochester. It took 2 years to get into subsidized housing for elderly only. The waiting list is so long.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming Milton has nothing, so it's probably even worse.
Right. I'm gonna go to you, because you haven't talked a lot, so.
Right, my question is, I mean, that's really not that big of a building. I mean,
The building,
realistically, how many apartments are you going to?
bulldoze it.
It wouldn't go into that building.
You wouldn't?
We're talking, no, matter of fact, if one of the things, just because we had talked, across the street in the parking lot would be more suitable for building an entire building there and tearing down the old building and making parking in that area.
Old
Because you
churches.
have a lot of
don't make
land
great
available to turn around and
Right.
redo.
They don't.
That church building's not big enough for
And the
it.
church
No,
building's
that's
not in
not
great,
And not only that, it's falling apart.
it's not in great shape. The
There's
parcel.
also discussion
And it's
about,
not ADA. I mean, every entrance, you have to go up the stairs to get into.
You were gonna say
I
something.
was just gonna say, there was also discussion about whether Charles Street needs to continue to connect.
Yeah, you can change the whole thing.
Because it's not a great spot to enter onto that major road,
Okay.
especially if you have an elderly building. And there's not many people that are accessing it through there, so there was talk of that.
So thinking that if this became the parcel, the beauty of it is at the end of Charles Street, and that the access to this is not from this road, but is through here, so it's safer, and you've got a better intersection further down to go out onto,
Where the old fire station was.
out onto White Mountain Highway.
More land too, because the road.
So from a New Hampshire DOT perspective,
Oh,
This is-
they'll buy that in a heartbeat.
this is a horrible intersection. It's death waiting to happen. Larry?
This is exactly the reason I was here, and I've been thinking in detail about this, and there are several points that need to be recovered. And that is, one, we own it, and right now, the south end of Charles Street is a northbound racetrack. People who live on Hughes Street is a dead end off School Street, don't have that kind of traffic. They have improved property values and also have adapted to the one-way traffic on School Street that you now have to go down to get onto Hughes Street. Charles Street is a community with a wonderful collection of the mill housing that was Milton for much of the 19th and 20th centuries. So the question is, how can the reuse of that parcel help Charles Street, respect the architecture of our history, add much-needed affordable housing, and help local businesses thrive? Suggestion: you begin by blocking off the south end of Charles Street, and you use the old townhouse as I detail below. First, the church has been formally deconsecrated and was itself a new construction for the first church there that was lost to fire. Few now remember the discrimination and culture wars that led up to the original construction of that house. N'est-ce pas? Okay, you got it. First off, the building needs a new roof. It needed a new roof when we opened it. You ditch the steeple, you change the entire roof to a simple 4/12 straight ridge line. This complements the existing architecture of, say, the Milton Garage, Pizza Nook, or the rooming house at Little Italy by the firehouse. That pitch sheds water, is economical of materials, is easy to work on for re-roofing in the future, and is adaptable to solar panel installation. The defects of the foundation can be cured by a careful needle beam, pumped concrete addition with sprayed foam on the side, reparging, and riprap drainage. The heating system needs replacement. Go for a heat pump. You cut carbon and you free up floor space. RSA 67458.6 is municipal responsibilities for workforce housing. Contact the Regional Workforce Housing Coalition out of Raymond for information on who is doing what and how. If you go to Zillow, you will find incredible, clever examples of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. By my rough sketch, we would be looking at 4, possibly 5 units protected by a massive noise deadening closet wall, back-to-back utilities for bath, kitchen, plus private entrances, cross ventilation to all units.
Okay.
That's not it.
Doing their job.
But, okay.
The reuse of the existing footprint.
Mhm.
You put in an open courtyard from the main entrance and the town assistant, town administrator out to the road. The second unit begins at the road. You have a covered courtyard. You block off the roadbed. You leave the south parcel available as a
Well, let me ask
town
you,
park.
why do you want to reuse the building?
Because it recovers the sunk costs of original construction and has already had some improvements done to it, has wonderful 12-foot high ceilings, which are wonderful for studio apartments.
I have a comment. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go totally on my own because I think that I'm in my own boat. But, as far as like what we need for the town, like there's a lot of kids in Milton and they do not have a lot of options to do anything. There's no places to go after school. There's not a rec department, like a rec facility. My kid is at basketball until past 9 o'clock at night because we only have one gym. Like, I know that we also need senior housing, but we also need things for teens.
Yes,
So
sir.
to address that, that was one of the things we had also talked about. If you put in a facility here where you can have the housing up above, we had actually talked at one point about maybe moving the school superintendent of schools, that office facility down to here, and taking the Damon House and turning it into a facility for the kids. Because there's possibilities to shuffle some of the things around. That's closer to the school, and it would end up, because you literally can have a senior center downstairs and an office area down there where that could be done as well. That was just some of the things that they collected that information from us from the meeting we had.
So,
The idea,
Because we agree, you need a place for the kids.
Yeah.
That's also the reason why we talked about a building down at the beach. Another way to have
so,
the kids have.
yes, there's all these things that come together that solve that. I just want to point out to your point that saving one of the most sustainable things you can absolutely do is to reuse embedded carbon, right? And embedded carbon is a building that's already built and doing to your point. However, if that building staying in place hinders a better overall use of this entire parcel, and we're gonna look at this potentially as one parcel with Charles Street closed, which contributes to the Charles Street neighborhood with housing and that kind of use. So we're gonna weigh that out. We're gonna weigh out something very similar to what you talked about. How do we use that building? And then what are the other options for using the entire site? And we're not making a decision. That'll be up to all of you to evaluate. But thank you for doing that. That was an incredible amount of work, and I certainly appreciate the effort you put into compiling.
You have no
that.
idea, he's using a computer, and if you knew like, that's the biggest thing in this meeting right there.
Double bonus, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think you raise a good point that we have two incredible I'm not saying this isn't incredible, but we have some parameters around that need to be considered. this property and this property offer a lot of solutions, yes.
I wasn't sure when people were talking about elderly housing, if anyone was contemplating assisted living housing.
That's a whole nother world, because my mother's in assisted living.
Because that also strikes me as a need in Milton. I'm
They're
not-
combining those now, assisted
So-
living and
I'm
senior.
sorry?
They're combining those two now in the same facility.
Right, so I mean,
But for-
that should just be part of the, you know.
That's gonna go to a developer though, and someone has to do that, and you lose control.
I see.
Because there is all the staffing,
Yeah,
and it is hard to do assisted living, because you have to, there's so many regulations around it, it's gotta go to a private
I see,
entity.
okay.
Whereas the town could actually be more involved in senior housing that's rented
Okay,
and subsidized. It would need to establish probably a housing authority, but you can't do assisted living.
Other needs that might be able to be combined, since you're talking about more structure, is a real grocery store in Milton or a food co-op. I mean, if elderly are living there, wouldn't they love to be able to just walk around the corner and and get some groceries? Because all we have is Dollar General, which doesn't have any produce.
Where is the closest grocery store?
Rochester.
Rochester.
And was there ever a grocery store in Milton?
Oh,
Yeah,
Stores,
I mean,
small general
small.
Right
stores,
downtown,
yeah.
smaller.
Yep.
It was
Here's-
like 3 at one time.
Right, so that's hard, because again, that's a private entity coming in. A co-op, so I have an office in Keene, and we have the Monadnock Food Co-op, which is amazing, but I was in town when that was getting going. That's a monumental wave to get going. Once you do, a co-op is incredible, but I think, looking at, maybe there is least space for something like that here. Yes.
I have another question. So you were talking about maybe, just say that there was an option for a rec between the beach and Emma Ramsey. Now, if you guys were able to do something at the beach, would that be readily available to other people? Because I feel like the rec is its own thing, and they're kind of hard to touch sometimes, as far as recs.
Maybe not. That's up to us to come up with ideas and say, look at all this cool stuff, and it's up to all of you to get excited or say, what are you thinking? Right? But that's why we want this input, because it is these needs, and how do we take this list of needs and take all 3 of these properties, of everything we've heard tonight, and come up with ideas for each one of these properties that help solve your problem.
It helps each of the properties too. There
Right.
could be ways to.
Yes, ma'am.
I have something slightly different. The library seems to be in tough shape in town. What if we put the library and some senior housing in that same area? Would give them something to do in that area?
Are you talking the
The
new?
Historical Society's in the old library building, it's not in the Milton Mills Free Public Library or in the new library, so you've got 2 things that they're talking about.
Because we have 2 workable libraries.
Okay. So library's not really an issue right now?
No, when she's referring to the Historical Society is the old library building.
The library has its own issue.
Yeah, yes, it does.
One more trip to the well.
Okay, love it.
I'm actually 18. High school was very hard on me.
I'm gonna use that line.
Yes. I would much prefer to have young people with their children and their superior muscles in the town with access to the multiple occupations that the older of us depend on.
So that is
And
the
that
idea behind senior housing, is it frees up housing to be sold for those people to have.
I'm sorry, the reality of housing in New Hampshire is that its age is going up. It generally has the higher pitch slopes and no insulation, and the cost of rehabilitation for young couples are exorbitant, regardless of mortgage
But
rates.
it's worse for a senior that really can't afford that house.
A reverse
Sorry to
mortgage
say that.
is theft.
Regardless, I think that's a broader discussion that isn't
Yep.
for this, right? That's an approach,
But
which,
housing populations
Housing in
for
general.
affordable housing.
that's for all of you to decide. We're gonna figure out how we put housing there, what it actually is. If it happens, that's what you'll decide. Anything else? Yes.
It's not called the community center anymore?
What's that? Oh, down there? No, right now, we moved the sign and everything else. The other end of the building down here is now the new Emma Ramsey Center.
So we should
I
refer to this
think that-
property as the Catholic Church, or former
Yeah,
Catholic Church.
I think that, I think at one time it was named that because Emma Ramsey was a big part, and her family was a big part of
And
that.
actually, they were involved with us moving it up here.
Okay,
So, yes, they're definitely behind it, and if you look at the other end of the building, you'll see we had the sign redone and
Yeah.
everything, so it's turned it into the community center.
so right now that building's not called anything.
No, the sign's been removed, basically, it's just the old townhouse, right, or the old church, the old Catholic
Old
church.
Catholic Church.
So-
I do remember back in the day when my grandmother was part of the guild, Sacred Heart Guild, that they had
The church did.
wonderful ham and bean suppers downstairs. And I know that you said that there's like a full kitchen up this way.
And we have the dinners up here now.
I'm just wondering, is there a lot of parking up here? Because when I came in tonight, I was surprised that the parking lot was so full, because it is quite small. Having this meeting and
Yeah.
the activity that was going on there was kind of hard finding a place to park.
It's a little bit, there's a little less parking
tight.
here, but the
But
thing
you're not
is-
crossing Charles Street.
No.
Back and
No, but I mean, we always
Yeah,
had.
There's a little more parking down in that area, but
Yeah.
it's also unusual up here to have two big things going on at the same time.
But if you had like a town dinner, or like it's a ham and bean or whatever, there is more parking if you used it for something like that. Like a facility that could be rented out.
We filled this place up too, when they've had the bingo and everything else, and the other end's full, and there is room to get cars out here, so.
Yeah, there's parking out back, I just don't think people utilize it.
Yeah, and that's
Is
the
it-
reason
is the
the town
parking out back
employees use,
well lit?
It's town employees.
it's town employees only, and that's to keep the facility out front to have.
If it was an event in the evening, though, would that parking be available or shut off?
Right now, no, because of the security aspect.
Do you
of the
run
back
out of
end.
parking here for events ever?
So when you have bingo on Tuesdays, sometimes we do run out of parking, but we're not on Charles Street, we're not on Route 125, or we're not on Route 75. So they can park right on Industrial Way. It's no farther walk than when you used to park there. And really, the number of parking spots that were in that parking lot, the parking lot looks a lot bigger than it actually
It's not that
it is when you count the number of parking spots. There's not a lot more there than there are here.
It's just the one open space, that's the difference,
Yep. What else? Yes.
My thought is that the children, obviously they use the school, and if they had something, an activity center, it should be walkable from the school. I don't know how they get to the beach. I suppose they bike.
There's different avenues, there's a bus, they bus them down.
They do use the bus,
Oh,
the
yeah.
school buses?
A lot of kids do ride their bikes, but there is buses do.
I wouldn't want my kid riding a bike on 125. Holy
I'm not
smokes.
sure I'd want
Actually,
to.
if you look at 125 today, it's got more room with the way they did they marked the lines than it had before. There is more
Still.
space. But, and kids grow up that way, but.
What,
So
what
I
else?
There's
so
any-
I was thinking, something, if we're thinking about a youth center or a place to, I don't know what you would have in interior side, but it should be in closer proximity to the school, because anything in this building would need a parent to get them here.
So the building you're talking about where the school admin is now, is that near the school?
It's right next to it.
It's right next door.
That
And
would,
it's not very big.
It's not very big.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying there's something that can be done in that area, and maybe we can adjust something. It's just trying to think of all possibilities.
Well,
Right
I'm
now,
with you there
the
because-
closer you can have it to the school,
Exactly.
the better it would be.
so think of it as not as the building that's there, but a vacant piece of property where something could be built that accommodates the uses that they
Right.
need. What else?
And I'm thinking back to the senior housing, if there was a communal area,
Senior-
so that you
senior
would
center
have
right here.
small living spaces but have a communal area for visitors, for the residents to commune together, because companionship is very important.
So when we do this, come up with these ideas, we're not gonna get down to designing the units, right? This is where a broader 60,000 foot look, that it is senior housing, exactly what it is, will determine that. But senior housing typically comes with that sort of space, right?
But could it accommodate, like, for instance, the bingo program?
Could.
Take the pressure off of this.
Could be a community room there that does that. You know, if the historical society isn't here, bingo could happen here if we get this parking in order, right? So again, it's looking at all of these uses, not that we're gonna assign them, but our idea is to get all of these properties, ideas to get them to where they're maxing their usage and accommodating as much of this as possible. And, you know, it could be that things can happen here, or here, depending upon availability and a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be pigeonholed. Unless this gets to be used by historical, and then it probably has a narrower use group, but then you've got other places. So that's the idea, is to take this list that Drew you've given us, and how do we accommodate those things? That's our job. Is there anything you feel like we've missed? You've been a great participants tonight. It's really been phenomenal. I honestly go to these meetings and sometimes nobody wants to say anything, and we do all the talking. I've done a lot of talking, but I definitely appreciate the input, and it's great that you love your town so much and are as enthusiastic about this as you are. So the plan is that are gonna take some time to kind of rehash all this, come up with some ideas. There'll be a follow-up meeting that we do where we say, here's our ideas for these. Not saying this is what you're gonna do, but here's what could happen here, here's what could happen here, here's what could happen here, and here's what it would take to get there. And then you'll give us more feedback, and then we will put together a final report for the county and the town, and you'll go from there. Are there any other questions for us?
How long will the survey be active?
Yeah, I was just gonna cover that. Before I answer your question, any other questions? Okay, the survey, we haven't set a date to close it off yet, but we just got it up live today, so it's gonna be up for at least a couple weeks, we'll say, all right? So to get access to that, you can, we have a few, you can take one with you if you're in a shared household, please just take one, but, or, like I said, you can scan the QR code. Let me just double check to make sure it does.
It did.
The other option is, I will put a couple of my business cards up at the top there, over the table there. You can email me. The other thing is, I'm gonna make sure the TA gets a link to put on the town website that you can also get it. So there's multiple locations. You can contact me. Did you do this QR code?
It works.
It does? All right, good. It takes you to that story map place? Okay, good. So you can do the QR code, you can email me, or you can check the town website, probably starting sometime tomorrow.
Please do the survey even though you were here, because there are questions from here I didn't go into, and it would help us to compile that data as part of this. So if you would take the time and ask your friends to do it,
share
and get people to give us the information.
And the other thing with my card is, if you have thoughts that aren't able to be put on the survey, and you want to get them to someone, you can get it directly to me, or you can do it through, your town leaders, and they'll get it to me eventually.
Larry, you have a 400-word limit.
Yeah. So yes, again, my name is Blair Haney with SRPC, so feel free to grab a card if you want.
I appreciate everyone's
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, it was a great meeting.
Great,
I know
very,
you,
very
that's why I
good.
said to see you on this.